Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I wanted to talk you through 8 things that have completely changed my finances and the way I view my finances. You guys may find some of these helpful for yourself. If you have any helpful hints, tips or hacks when it comes to your finances, anything that you did that, even the really outrageous ones, in fact sometimes they're the most interesting, drop them down in the comments below so that we can all benefit from them. So the first thing that I did when I decided to take my finances really seriously was I scrapped the vague budgets. When I tell you I was terrible at budgeting, and that was because I wasn't really using a budget. I knew roughly what I was spending. I knew what my fixed bills were, like I knew how much my rent was, I knew how much my gas and electricity was, but I really never took the time to work out how much was all of that together, how much was it exactly, and especially when it came to my variable expenses, well, I would fool myself into thinking I knew how much I was spending on food and things like that, but I didn't. I knew roughly how much I was spending on like my big shops, but I didn't even take into account those little kind of in-between shops that you do. Now, you go into Tesco's to get your milk and you end up coming out with 2 bags worth of shopping. Those weren't even taken into consideration. So I got really serious with my budgeting. I made sure that I know exactly how much my fixed expenses were. I know exactly how much my variable expenses were. I know exactly to the penny how much my income is. I know what date everything is going out. And then I had a real snapshot of what my finances were. So out with the vague and in with the specifics. Now that leads us on to number 2, which is tracking expenses. Like I say, I was not doing that at all, and that was my downfall because I would always underestimate how much I was spending. So I would highly recommend, if you're someone who's trying to get a hold on your budgeting right now, spend the next month, few weeks, manually tracking every single expense that you have. Every time you tap your card, every time you pay with cash, even if you give your kids a couple of pounds to go to the ice cream man because it's boiling right now, write all of that down on a piece of paper without judging yourself. Just spend as you would normally spend. Then at the end of that period, I want you to go back and categorize each of those expenses. This is really going to help you to see where you've got the hole in the bucket, where the money is kind of leaking out, and where you're overspending, where you probably didn't even realize that you were doing it. But the key point is to do that without judgment. If you find yourself in a pickle when it comes to your finances, which I've been there, I know what that feels like, the shame that you can feel, the guilt that you feel, like, why did I even do that? Why would I make those decisions? It's not going to help you to get out of a situation any quicker. So we're going to get rid of the guilt, we're going to start tracking, we're going to analyze it so that we can use that information to make better decisions in the future. So the third thing that I did, and I was very serious about this from the beginning, was that I was going to attack my finances from 2 angles. There was one, I was going to budget and track my money that I already knew I had coming in. And the next thing was to increase my income. Now thankfully we live in an age where there are a ton of different ways for you to make money in your part-time, from home. You can fit it in around your other responsibilities. It's just about finding the right thing for you, because you'll probably know, if you've looked up the side hustle culture online, there's a lot of scam. There's a lot of scammy people. And please, let me tell you this, I always say this, you don't need to buy a course. Okay, if you see something that you want to learn, you likely don't need to buy a course. There's likely a ton of free information right here on YouTube. Go and do that before you waste your money. But things like social media. There are women on TikTok who just started filming themselves cleaning, taking care of their kids, just their daily lives, who are now making extra money that's changed their families' lives forever. Like, you don't need to be teaching people things, just share who you are, share your life. There will always be people that will relate to you. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to be polished. You don't need to have a super aesthetic house. Just be you. You might also want to try things like KDP. That is something that I do, and I've thankfully been fairly successful at doing that. That is creating books that you sell through Amazon. But if you're looking for something that's less like a business, you might want to try match betting. For example, I've done that in the past and made a nice amount of money actually from it. So go and look up that if you don't know what that is. Also look for things like testing products or taking surveys. A website or an app called User Testing, which is testing out websites. I've done a couple of bits for those, and I think I got about $10 per assignment for that. Another one you might want to try is Zest Fieldwork. Now they have a lot of kind of product-based testing. So they will send you a product that a brand is maybe looking to launch soon, and they want people to test it in their own homes. You try it out for a month and they will pay you. And that can be anything from £50 to £100 up, depending on the product and what exactly they want you to do with it. But remember, when it comes to increasing your income, you don't need to go from what you're on now to increasing it to thousands. When I first started, I remember sitting and thinking, you know, actually £100 a month would be amazing right now. That would make a difference. That would mean that I was sweating less when I went to pay for my shopping. So remember, it doesn't always need to be a ton of money extra. Like for me, it definitely wasn't that when I started out. And that takes us to number 4. So once I found a way to increase my income, I noticed that the lifestyle creep began to come in, and I'll admit I'm horrendous at doing that in the past. That lifestyle creep is going to keep you stuck at the same level. If you're spending as much as you're earning every month, you are never going to be in a better position, because that certainly has caught me out in the past. And I had to have a word with myself and say, do you want to buy these things now, or do you want to have long-term stability? And of course, pick the stability. And so now, and this is the 5th thing that I do, is I ask myself, is this a want or is this a need? So the first thing I ask myself is, do I need it? If it's an absolute need, then I can buy it. The second question is, do I want this? And if it's just a want, then I will put, because generally I do my shopping online, I will put that item into the basket online and then come out of the website. And I do that, and I stay out of it for at least a day. And when I tell you, more often than not, I either forget about it, or I sit and think about it later and think, do you know what, actually, yeah, no, I don't really want that, or I don't, you know, that's all, that I'm wasting that money. If at the end of that time period I'm still obsessing over that thing, then I will allow myself to buy it. And you know what sometimes happens is, if you're logged into your account and you put things in your basket and you go away, sometimes if you leave it for a few days, the company will email you with a cheeky discount code, because they can see that you've left things in your shopping cart and they obviously want you to complete the sale. You know? And who doesn't love a cheeky little discount code? So number 6, then, I stopped comparing myself to other people. It's so easy, especially, and I mean, I've been a single parent for many years now. I am a single income household. Like, everything is on me financially. And it is so easy to see friends or people that live nearby talk about, well, we're going on this holiday and this trip, and I'm buying this car and I'm doing this, and feel that jealousy of, oh, I wish I could do that. But what you have to remember is that everybody's situation is different. Some of the people may have 2 incomes into their house. Their expenses may be far less than what you're paying out. Maybe they bought their house 20 years ago, so their mortgage is going to be considerably cheaper than if you are renting right now. So you have to stop. We have to stop. You know, it's so difficult, especially with social media, it's so easy to look and think everybody else's life is perfect. Everybody else has got money to splash around and do whatever they want to do. And do you know what I had to tell myself? That's not my business. It doesn't matter what other people are doing. You know what? Somebody else might look like they've got a perfect life and they're up to their eyeballs in debt to try and maintain that. So now I don't compare myself to anybody else. I know what my finances look like. I know what I have to pay for. I know the things that I can look forward to. And I focus on that. So we've talked then about budgeting and about increasing the income. So when it comes to savings, and this is the 7th thing that I did, I got very serious about goal setting when it came to savings. Before, I would have, a bit like the budgeting, these very vague ideas of, oh, I'd like to have £5,000 in savings, which sounds great, but there was no goal as to how I was going to get there. There was no deadline, and there was no plan for what I was doing with that £5,000 once I reached that target. So for me, that really made me lack motivation to actually save that money. I wrote down things that I needed to save for in the short term, so Christmas, birthdays, the kids going back to school, car expenses, holidays, clothing, all of that kind of stuff. And then I wrote down my longer term savings goals, that I'm looking like 2-3+ years before I need to have saved those. With all of them, I gave them all a target goal. So take Christmas, for example. I worked out how much I wanted to spend for Christmas in total. So that was presents, food, any decorations, any activities that we might want to do, and worked out what the total was. Then I gave myself a deadline for when I needed to have that savings pot filled. Then I worked out the time difference from where I was to the deadline. Then I used that to work out how much money I needed to save weekly and monthly so that I had a fully funded sinking fund for Christmas. I remember the first year that I did that for Christmas and how much of an absolute pleasure it was to go out shopping for presents, to get the food shop, because the money was already sitting there. In the previous years, I would have tried to bankroll it maybe out of a couple of months in the run up to Christmas. Some years were easier to do that than others, but it always made it quite stressful. Where can I get this money in? Where can I take money from? Maybe I'll pay that after Christmas. And you end up in this it's so easy to end up in this frenzy. And so the 8th and final thing that I'm going to talk about today is, once I'd made those savings goals, I made them fun. I'm someone who needs to have little rewards along the way to keep me motivated when it comes to savings. So I personally love trackers. Anything I can colour in, that I can tick something off of, that really helps me. So I would highly suggest making your savings challenges or your sinking fund goals fun. Get yourself some trackers. I also track all of my sinking funds on a spreadsheet. Me being able to see what percentage I have saved, so I can track how much progress I've made and change all the colours of the boxes and stuff. That really helps. And that sounds so simple, but honestly, you have to do things that are going to keep you motivated. Do what works for you. Like we said, we're not comparing ourselves to anybody else. If somebody else can set themselves a large target and just keep putting money aside and that's enough for them, great, love that for them. But if you're someone like me who loves a tracker, you love colouring things in, you need those little rewards along the way, great, do what works for you. So those are just some of the things that I implemented into my own personal finances when I started to take them more seriously, and they've actually worked for me. They're all really simple things that really just required me to just put a bit more effort and a bit more attention into where my money was going and what I wanted to happen to my money. If you have any other tips, please do drop them down below. If you've made it this far in the video, drop me a comment, drop me an emoji so I know that you're still here. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I appreciate each and every one of you, and I'll see you next time. Take care.